Wagwan, a multifamily enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Real Estate Experiment Podcast, where we dive deep into real estate investing, innovation, and personal growth. I'm your host, Shelon Hutchinson. If you've been following me for a while in real estate, you might know me as Hutch, the Marine Investor. Today, we have another extraordinary guest for you. This guy is a friend. We've been connected for a couple of years now. A good friend today is Tom Kirkpatrick. Tom is the founder of Town Square Capital, a Knoxville-based investment firm and environmental geologist. This man did this for 35 years. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. He's a former U.S. Marine. Tom brings disciplined, analytical approach to real estate investing. Since purchasing his first property in 2016, he has focused on revitalizing B-class apartment complexes in high growth markets like Nashville, Knoxville, and Columbus. Tom, I want to welcome you to this episode of the Multifamily Real Estate Experiment Podcast, aka the M3 Podcast.
I'm fired up to always. You've got such an infectious personality. I always enjoy my times with you.
Thank you, my brother. Look, do you have a favorite real estate quote or mantra that drives you, Tom?
The quote that I actually keep, it's not really a real estate quote as much, but it led me to real estate. There is only one success: to be able to spend your life in your own way.
Ooh.
That's a quote by Christopher Morley. It just pretty much sums it up. Is what I strive for in real estate is to be able to live the life I want. And that's what we try to give to our investors.
Yeah, man. Over the years, I try to change my relationship with death, right? Like if something should happen, what would my family structure that I leave behind look like? And I
Yeah.
think when you think about the inevitable, your approach to daily activities becomes a little bit different. I think you get to be a lot more purposeful. To your point, to your quote, there's really no exact way to try your life on, especially this in this physical realm. So I think it's important that you really do your best to be the best version or to live the best version of this experience. You know what I mean?
What works for you? What is your
Yeah.
ideal life? And hopefully you can live it, because our time is short. I know that some personal development courses will have you write an obituary for
Yeah.
yourself today,
Hmm.
and then maybe write what you really want it to be to
Correct.
give you some things to look at.
What it does, that put the inevitable in your preview. This thing is coming and you don't have infinite time, right? So you work on things a lot more purposeful and you get things accomplished at a more rapid rate. So I think it has its value. Some folks don't want to think about it. I think it's an important place to go in your brain housing group. Go to the future, come back to the present, and do something about the trajectory.
Yeah, but I think the most important thing is just being present and enjoying the moment. Yeah, you got to have goals, you got to strive, but I've gotten to a point where I'm not trying to be something necessarily. I'm striving and I want to become that person that can do these types of deals or whatever. But for the most part, it's about enjoying the ride and really being present and enjoying every moment.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I know we haven't even gotten the podcast. We're getting some deep mindset stuff right now. So Athena and I was sitting down on a chair in the bedroom. She was sitting down on the bed and it was talking about pretty much this exact topic, right? Just we have some big goals of where we want to go. However, we do not want to be stressed out by those goals, right? Because we understand what the processes look like and just focus on the daily activity that leads to the weekly results that compounds on a quarterly basis that leads to an amazing annual results, right? And just to your point, enjoying that purpose. I think when we say be present, some folks who are not goal oriented will really misunderstand that and just wake up every day and let life happen.
Yeah,
And
no,
you can't just let life happen. You have to create it, do
for
life.
sure. Yeah.
Brother, so I touch on your bio. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and the things that you're committed to now?
What I'm really focused on right
Yeah.
now, I bought my first property in 2016, which allowed me to actually sold that property last year after
Wow.
7 years. We ended up, it was a historically great time in multifamily real estate. I
Yeah.
just happened to take action, which is
Yeah.
key. That property did like a 35% IRR over
Nice.
7 years. Pretty amazing property, which that one property gave me confidence and the ability, resources to leave my W-2, which, as you mentioned, was as a project manager. I started out in geology. I've got a couple of geology degrees. I've got a master's in geology from University of Houston, my undergrad at University of Texas, and worked for Exxon in the oil business for a lot of years. We didn't want to live in Houston after we had kids. We decided we wanted to move east. We didn't have any family in Texas, so we moved to Tennessee, where my wife's family is. I personally lived in 13 houses by the time I was in high school. My dad moved around a lot on jobs. He was an opportunistic person. But anyways, we settled in Tennessee back in 1995. And that's what I really wanted for my family. I didn't want to be running around. We live in this 100-year-old house here in East Tennessee.
It looks
and
nice.
have a life that we enjoy. 3 children that are up and grown. 2 of them are accountants. They were probably smart not to follow their dad into geology, which is a little bit more limited. My daughter does advertising, and we've got a grandchild due in October. So that's the big excitement around here.
Oh man, congratulations on that, man. Life
Thank
is
you.
progressing.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that geologist and how it transitioned into real estate. With your 35 years of experience in petroleum mining and environmental geologist, what inspired you to transition to real estate, and how does your background influence your approach to multifamily real estate?
Yeah, that's great. As far as my interest in real estate, I always knew I wanted to do something in real estate. A
Okay.
buddy of mine at work in about 1995 or 96, he had a book about real estate. I don't even remember what the book was or who wrote
Right.
it or anything, but I said, hey, when you're done with that, let me take a look at it. So I borrowed it from him. And the very first page of the first chapter said, oh, so you want to be in real estate? Get yourself completely out of debt. And there I was with 3 young kids, had just moved out of the oil business where I was making better money into the environmental business where I took a pretty significant pay cut. So I took the book, closed it, gave it back to him, and said, okay, I guess I'll work on that for a while. I didn't even read the book.
Yeah.
But over time, I continued to keep that in the back of my mind. Really, as far as the geology led to project management, right? So in the later part of my career, I wasn't really doing much geology. I had geologists that were working on our projects. I was a project program manager, mostly finances, systems, personnel oversight, overseeing contractors. So it really, from a standpoint of transitioning more towards an asset management role as a general partner, that's really where I bring the most value. So the properties that I look at are primarily Knoxville, Nashville, Columbus, Ohio. I live in Knoxville area, regional properties where I can provide boots on the ground and interface with the property management, contractors, and on-site personnel.
Now that boots on the ground is really important, man. I'm in Hawaii. We got some asset that is on the East Coast, and it's definitely a little bit more challenging compared to when I lived in Pensacola. And we are able to do a day trip up to Georgia, few points, face to face with the property manager, contractors, or even just walk the asset and look at it on a monthly basis, right? Versus relying on the property management company to give us the update. So the boots on the ground is really important. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me know if I can help you out with that. And that's really what I've reached out to some other general partners to partner with them to say, hey, there's a lot of people. I've got a guy who's in San Francisco who's a tech worker who he's a high, probably making 300 grand a year. I don't know, maybe more. I don't know. But he's interested in buying real estate and doing multifamily in East Tennessee. So the 2 of us are working together to try to find properties that'll work for him. And then he's got a group of investors out there, the people he worked with, that should be a good resource for us. So yeah, that's what I try to bring to some of my partnerships.
Yeah, that is good. And we do the same thing too, right? Establish a relationship with investors on the ground to be able to provide us information outside of what the property managers are providing us. Now, let's talk about revitalizing B-class apartment complexes, right? So you've got some good success in revitalizing B-class apartments in high growth markets. So what are some of the key factors you consider when selecting property for revitalization, and how do you ensure these investment yield substantial returns?
Yeah, very good questions. I really started out focusing on C-class properties,
Okay.
the classic C
Yeah.
value add. It seems like a lot of people were doing that 3 or 4 years ago very successfully. It worked
Right.
great for me with this little 13 unit. My first property was a 13 unit down the road. Worked out great. But as time has gone on, what we're finding, especially right now, is that investors are leery of beat up old properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, I don't really want to look at any property older than 19 unless
Mhm.
the plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, especially plumbing and electrical. I don't like galvanized pipe or black iron sewer drain pipe. Over time, and it really to appeal to our investor base, we've upgraded from C-class properties to B-class properties. Now, the only problem there is that typically your price point's going to be higher.
Correct.
And so your returns on those, if you buy a stabilized B-class property, your return projections usually aren't going to be 18 IRR, 2.4 multiple in 5 years. You're not going to get that with that
Yeah.
type of property. But what we do is we focus on markets that are really growing. You've got job growth, income growth, a lot of technology coming into most of the markets that we're working in. So what you do with these properties, you buy a better property in
Yep.
a better market, and through time that you really, nothing's a guarantee, of course, we know that, but we feel that we're very well positioned. Right now we have a property under contract in Columbus, Ohio, and it's a B plus class property built in 2015, and that Columbus, Ohio market is just blowing up right now. Intel has got a multi-billion-dollar factory that they're building. To
Nice.
go along with that, Google has now come in and they're building a big property. So that's what we've done. We've transitioned from C to B, and it's about picking the right markets where we feel like the long-term growth is inevitable and that it's currently documentable right now.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Yes, to your point, man, we have bought some C-class property back in the days, and C-class property has proven to be a lot more challenging nowadays to manage with the challenges of property management company, reliable contractors, different constraints that comes with a C-class property. To your point, we too like the B-class properties. And we have even looked at some A-class properties with the operators that we work with, right? Because there's still some strings you can pull on to improve the bottom line, right? One of our best-in-class operators, one of the things they do is they create strategic partnership with the housing authorities, which give us different tax breaks, right? So we don't have to go in and do a bunch of renovation. For example, some of the properties we look at, the renovation's already completed, right? The operators work with, they can go in and they can eliminate some expenses that some other operators may not have had the relationship and the knowledge to be able to eliminate. So those kind of strategic relationship is important to us as we focus more on pooling our investors together. We've sold a property recently, and we started selling this property last year. It was a solid C-class property in a solid C-class environment. That was not going to improve the asset class. So we sold it a solid C-class property, and we ended up selling it what we believe to be a market discount, not because the fundamentals of the market was bad. It's just that it was a solid C-class property, and that's what the evaluation came out to, especially with the current interest rate environment. So that created what we believe is a discount for the buyer, which the deal has to make sense for them to purchase it. Us as
Sure.
operator understand the environment that we're working in. So this clear is a noticeable discount in the market. I mean, you are active in that we are active in compared to 2 years ago. Look at right now between a 20 and 30% discount. How are you leveraging these market conditions to find and close on quality deals?
Yeah, we feel like we're in a what you might call a generational opportunity right now. We're at
Right.
least in a cycle that we feel can be very lucrative going forward. The discounts that like in Nashville, even Knoxville. I was speaking to a broker in Knoxville a couple days ago, and I asked him, I said, "Are you seeing a general discount in the market?"
Yeah.
He said 100%. Because interest rates are high, pricing has had to come down. So we're at a point now. The problem we're having is investors are sitting on the sidelines, and it is more difficult to raise capital right now than it was a few years ago. And we're trying to get the message across that if we can buy properties now with this discount, and we're seeing, like you said, 20 to 30% in these pretty hot markets, that can just really bear fruit in the future. So it's directly why we are really scrambling now to find the deals that make sense for our investors. Right now, we have the 72 unit under contract. Ideally, we're going to be looking at larger properties with that group of general partners that I'm working with in Columbus, Ohio. That group is completely focused on Columbus, Ohio. And we have a great relationship with the main broker up there, the broker that does 85% of the large apartment deals in that market. This will be our fourth deal with him. So we're seeing a lot of off-market deals. He's already told us what's going to be coming on the market, but we need to be able to gather our investors and close. The problem we're seeing with this current deal is that it's not really big enough for institutional investors to come in and write a big check. Our total raise is 4.7 million. So it's all pretty much retail investors, which is a little bit more work than coming in and getting more institutional checks to write bigger checks. That's a little bit of a challenge, but we are focused on that discount and working to get deals done for ourselves and for our investors.
Yeah, that's good, man. I think that the folks who are buying projects now, if what is projected really happen, where we get into even normal inflation is usually a benefit because real estate is actually an edge against inflation. However, if interest rate goes down and we're able to refinance some of these assets, even if refinance is not a part of the cards and selling is the exit strategy, and we are selling in an environment where interest rate is lower, right? Chances are prices goes up, cap rate might compress a little bit as well. So it's proved to be beneficial for the folks who are still buying property, granted that they're capitalizing on these discounts. So for example, the past recession in 2009, can you elaborate on some parallels between what happened in 2009 and what's going on right now in your investment?
I was not active in real estate in 2008, 2009. So I don't want to put the impression that I've been through multiple cycles.
Gotcha.
We primarily been through a cycle that's been amazing. I bought in 2016. You didn't have to be a genius to make money. The good news was I took action, and now we're at a point where if you talk to the people who did go through those markets, who were bold when everybody was scared, 2009, 2010, the people who bought properties, who got investors and bought properties, they had huge rewards. So that's where we're at right now. People are scared. There's uncertainty in the market. We've got a discount. And we feel like there's a lot of parallels. The capital raising is difficult, just like it was then. But for those who can dig it out and get the deals done, there should be great rewards.
Yeah, man, we focus on raising capital as well. To your point, let's focus on the capital raising equipment. So capital raising in this environment is challenging right now. Investors, we know they're sitting on the sideline. To your points, how are you addressing these challenges? Not necessarily to convince, but to educate your investors that this is a good time to get into the multifamily investing.
Yeah, it's never about convincing, really. It's just trying to get the word out. I never really wanted to be in sales. And I always knew I could never be in sales unless it was a product that I really believed in. I'm just too honest. I've been told I'm honest to a fault. Like maybe sometimes I should hold my opinions.
Man, that's a Marine in you, man.
I guess. I think it's the Yankee in me from up in Connecticut. But and at least around here, that's what they say in Tennessee. Oh, he's an obnoxious Yankee. He tells it like it is. I think it's all about getting the word out. And we can't do deals without investors. Really, we can't. So it's just about hopefully, and the idea is to hopefully provide them that benefit. For me to be able to quit my W-2, a lot of the people that I work with, they're still there grinding away, and they're older than I am, and they're going to be grinding away, and they've got all their money in the stock market. Like all their savings in the stock market. What happened in the last week to their overall portfolio value? And I just sleep better at night knowing I've got not just multifamily. Once you get involved in real estate and meet people like you at conferences, you learn about all sorts of alternative investments.
Yeah.
So I'm spread out and diversified. I still have money in the stock market, but it's not my entire livelihood going forward. And I think that's just something that people can relate to.
Yeah, I think that's important. When I was in New York, I took the time to go down to the New York Stock Exchange. One, I wanted to visit the New York Stock Exchange because I've never really been
Sure.
there. I just heard about it and seen it on TV. But I took the opportunity to record some videos. And the point I try to make in all the videos is, look, real estate is really fun to be around. We understand how it's a little bit more predictable, right? It's a tangible asset, a lot of tax breaks, a lot of tax benefits in investing. However, it's important that we create a synergistic investment portfolio that leverage the growth in the stock market, also leverage some of the tangibility of investing in real estate to make a synergistic investment portfolio. We're going through what you mentioned as a once in a decade investment opportunity, right? I think you mentioned that. So what criteria do you use to identify these deals, and how do you navigate the complexity to close on them, right? For example, your deal right now that you have in Columbus.
Yeah. First is the relationships with the brokers. We
Right.
do not really actively source direct to seller deals. Typically, now the two properties that I've bought right near my house here in Tennessee are both deals that I sourced off market through sellers and actually got seller financing, which worked out great. But for
Nice.
really building a business and a process, we're pretty much all in on broker relations. There's so much to do to build a business. Like you said, capital raising, all the other aspects, building, hiring people, looking for properties. We feel like the brokers are the experts at that. What we do is we got to have deal flow. So we develop relationships with brokers. We get plenty of deal flow. And then it's a matter of sorting through those deals. A lot of underwriting. We actually use Real Estate Lab, which is an online underwriting tool that is a fairly new tool, but is growing, and we love it. And we can store all our documents in there, and then we can share that with you. And you can go in and look at our underwriting, look at our documents that we have. It's a great tool, all done in Google Sheets and online. It's about the deal flow, then really underwriting the deals and making sure that it makes sense to even pursue. I've quickly looked at 500 deals in the last 6 or 8 months. But as far as actually really digging in, probably dug in and looked at 100 to 150 properties. We've underwritten all of those. And so here we are. I haven't closed a deal in the last year and a half. And it's all about finding that deal. So anyway, we got this deal in Columbus. The numbers made sense. But then it's about, okay, you've gotten numbers from the seller. You obviously have to do a lot more work than that. We partnered with our property management company. We got them to look at all the financials, and then they come in and we've adjusted our expense assumptions. We've adjusted our rent growth and income assumptions based on feedback from a property management company who's based out of Columbus. So we feel really good about that. They know the market. And then the challenges then become, okay, you got to make the offer, get it under contract. And then you go into the capital raising piece. There's the debt piece. There's the preparing for asset management. I pretty much handled due diligence. I'm doing capital raising, but I was our lead on the due diligence for this property. So I went up there, met with we walked every unit. And then I'm also working on getting insurance quotes right now and getting the insurance set up for when we close. Right now, probably be closing in late August, early September is what it's scheduled. So I'm focused on that transition into the asset management. So there's a lot to do. We actually have a GP group of 6 on this deal. And what we decided to do, instead of partner with one high net worth individual or sponsor to underwrite the loan, we pooled our net worth and liquidity as a group to meet the needs of the debt. So we're all on the loan and we're all bringing capital to the deal, skin in the game, and we're ready to knock it out of the park, baby.
That's definitely a way to go, man. So you talk about roughly three teams that are vital. One, let's focus that GP team collectively have skin in the game. I know that speaks volume to the investors as you have these conversations with them, because that is a question that they typically ask. Are you investing in this deal? Sometimes it's a absolutely yes. I got 100 grand of my own money in this deal, plus or more, or collectively the GPs are putting up X amount of hundreds of $1,000s or $1 million into each deal. And I think that gives them, they understand that there's a lot more buy-in from the general partnership. You also talk about the importance of leveraging the relationship with the brokers, because the brokers, they have access to a ton of resource, right? They're keeping a pulse on the market, and they're doing a lot of marketing, so that save us as operators a ton of money going out direct to sellers and filtering out all these properties. So that 500 properties that you looked at, those brokers probably spend thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get those leads into their pipeline. So it's really important to develop the relationship with those brokers. One of the things that you talk about, man, that I really want to drive to our listeners, we can make all these bold assumptions that gives you this amazing projection of return, but it could be not good numbers, right? So what Tom just talked about.
You can make your underwriting
Yeah,
say anything by
yeah, you
changing
can.
a few
Yeah.
parameters.
Yeah, so what Tom just talked about is having a credible source, which is a property management company who is in the market, who are managing similar property or better, to give you some actual look. Here's a property that we're managing down the road. Here's what last month's expenses look like. Here's based on the average of the properties that those property management company are managing in the area. Here's what the average expenses are for X, Y, and Z. That gives us a more direct understanding of what's going on in the market. And from that place, we've made a necessary adjustment to create a more conservative underwriting and gives you better projection for the numbers based on the market analysis. So having a solid relationship with the GPs that is a part of that specific deal, and good brokers and property management in the market is three of the teams, or collectively one team, that will be key to executing a solid business plan. So as you do your due diligence on your operators, as you look to invest into multifamily, it's really important that you're asking about those different portion of the teams that will be involved in this asset. So Tom, I want to be respectful of your time, man. So we're going to roll into the focus round, right? This will be just go through some fast question. If you want to expand on them a little bit more than just a quick question. So Tom, what do you do for fun?
Lately, it's been golf. I try to spend as much time with my kids when I can, but they're
Right.
moved away right now. It's a lot of effort to get with them. But we're going to Nashville this weekend. I'll see my son. We're going to Boston in a few weeks. We're going to go see my daughter. But right now, I've got a big golf trip next week going out to Oregon to play golf for 5 days. I've never done that before in my life, played golf 5 days straight.
Oh,
So
wow.
lately, it's all about golf, getting myself ready for this big trip. That's been my main focus for fun lately, and work. Working out and everything. I usually swim and bike, and I've put my swimming and biking off to the side, and I've been going to the driving range and
Oh,
the
wow.
chipping green and all that other good stuff.
All right. Tom, what is one opportunity that was a game changer for you?
Oh, this little 13 unit down the street. I thought I wanted to buy a duplex. Ideally, I wanted to get this was in 2016. And I asked my buddy who's a real estate broker. He's mostly a residential broker.
Yeah.
So he put me on the MLS drip for multifamily properties. And the first week, I got an email, and there was this 13 unit that's a mile from my house. And I was like, wow. Okay, I didn't know anything about a 13 units, a little more. I've read Kiyosaki, and Rich Dad Poor Dad, he says, hey, if the thing loses money on a monthly basis, you can't afford that, or you can't afford very many of those. If it cash flows $15 a month when everything's all said and done, you can afford hundreds of those. I put it in a spreadsheet, basically took the numbers that the seller gave me, and I put them in there. I put the numbers and I discounted it by 20%. I said, basically, okay, let's say these are 20% too optimistic. And I convinced myself that this thing was going to cash flow. Bottom line is I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm pretty analytical, so I did enough without the knowledge that I satisfied myself. And I took action, and it's been the best decision from a business standpoint that I've ever made.
Kudos to you. What do you say is your most important communication tip?
Listen. You got to listen to communicate. I participated in a Toastmasters group for many years. When I worked my W-2 years ago, we had a Toastmasters group that met in our conference room, and I got involved in that, and I ended up being president of the club, and that gave me so much confidence to speak in public. It gave me so much confidence. One of the things you do in there is somebody gets up there and gives a speech. You sit there and somebody's in charge of listening, and then they have to get up 10 minutes later and rate their speech. So it makes you listen to exactly what they're doing. So then you can go up and give them feedback. I'd say you got to listen before you can communicate.
Oh man, I've never thought about that, having that in the work environment, because Marines in general, we typically are not afraid to speak, right? In public, right? The formation of thoughts that take a person on a journey so they can actually see what you're saying is definitely a skill that not everyone have mastered. So I have never thought about doing a Toastmaster like I like that. So I'm going into a new command. And as I think about some things, even though I don't know these people yet, but I'll be looking for opportunities to where I can grow, especially my staff non-commissioned officer core on a professional level, because I have to be able to add value to these high achievers. And I think public speaking and storytelling is important, right? In my professional opinion, especially in leadership. Storytelling is important in leadership. I'm hoping to bring that as one of the value to our middle management leaders.
The first time I ever had public speaking was at NCO school in San Diego. I did my 2 weeks in the summer at San Diego MCRD, and we had a public speaking, and I was terrified at the time. Just going back to the Marines, that was the first. Never had it in school. That's something I never took that in school. I know some people have speech, super important. It's a wonderful thing.
So what is one thing you wish you understood earlier?
Mindset, the importance of mindset. It wasn't until I bought that apartment complex and started listening. I was like, I better learn about real estate. And I started listening to Bigger Pockets podcast back in probably 2017. I started listening to Bigger Pockets, and I was commuting to work almost an hour each way. I went through 150, 200 episodes over a couple of years. More I listen to those podcasts, and you listen to successful people, successful real estate, it's always goes back to for them, it always goes back to mindset. And it was like an eye-opener for me. I wasn't a big self-development person, but anyway, so that has been, I wish I would have discovered just a little bit more about the importance of mindset early on.
That is 100%, man, because especially when you start thinking about your thoughts, right? It's like a weird concept that if you're not really conscious, and to your point earlier, presence, like how do I feel? What's driving this feeling, right? Why am I having this emotion, right? And then you get to a better place where like, okay, that thing I think is happening. What proof do I have that it's real? Or what proof do I have that this thing that I fear in the future is going to happen is not real, right? So you get to be present, you get to create better thinking, right? Which leads to better planning, which of course leads to better action, right? And to your point, mindset is important.
And more genuine connections with 100%. People. You make better connections.
You're correct. Yes, sir. To what do you attribute your success?
I guess just you got to take action. You can learn and you can read and you can listen and you can do all that, and you could fritter away your life and never do anything. So I think taking action, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't do that.
We are in the present right now, and at some point we will meet our future self. And the reason why I brought this picture over, as I look across, my computer is right above it so I can see it. And when I'm here talking, I often wonder, is that guy proud of this guy, to the point of taking action? So yeah, 100% take action, man. So Tom, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, man, how do they go about doing that?
My website so at Town Square Capital, my website is the letter T Square Cap. So very similar to your company name, but it's tsquarecap.com. I am Tom at tsquarecap.com. Those are probably the two best things. I'd love to get an email from anybody. And then all my social media links are available on the website.
Okay.
I can send you an email back, and that'll have my phone number and social media. So just to keep it simple, tsquarecap.com or tom@tsquarecap.com.
Thank you so much, man. Tom, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode, man, and sharing your insights and background with us and also the things that you committed to right now. So good luck on that deal in Columbus, man. It took a year and a half to find the right deal, and you have the right team to take this down. And I trust that it's going to be successful.
Yes, sir. Thank
All right.
you.
All right, so listeners, look, Tom dropped a bunch of golden nuggets today. I trust that you find value in the things that we talk about. Additionally, appreciate you spending time with us and listening to another episode of the Multifamily Real Estate Experiment Podcast. Happy investing. I'm Hutch the Marine Investor, out.